I think that one of the things that's important that as you've seen the Black Lives Matter march over the past month as a result of the death of George Floyd, Dr. King would not march for Trayvon Martin. He would not march for Michael Brown. He may have something to say about George Floyd and Eric Garner, but I think in general, that would not be a reason for his march. And then I can tell you that not only that, but never was a march led by Dr. King and Abernathy and Jackson and the others, though you may not agree with their political positions. They never marched against police brutality. And the reason why, even though Bull Connor turned loose dogs and fire hoses in Birmingham on 16 and 15-year-olds in Birmingham, school children, Dr. King's never marched against police being brutal to black people, mainly because it was not something that was vogue. There was no police brutality. Now, there were hangings, to be sure, and there was Emmett Till, but that was not police brutality. That was cultural, clannish, if you will, racial attacks that have been a part. And we don't know how many lynchings there were of black people. We know there were plenty and many. But I think the historians can only document about 30 lynchings, which any lynching is a tragic and awful, horrendous event that should have never taken place. But you figure since the period of the founding of the Ku Klux Klan in the 19th century to the 20th century, that the historians can only document 31. Listen, you can document more than 31 confrontations between police and young black men over the last 12 years. So, historically, we need to look at this, and we need to know that Dr. King would have never marched against police brutality. It would not have been something that he would have taken up. And Dr. King would have looked very carefully at, well, why did Trayvon Martin fight George Zimmerman? What was he doing in Sanford, Florida in the first place? And what was his character? Dr. King would have asked of Trayvon Martin and of Michael Brown that and those that were alleged to have killed him, that it wasn't the color of his skin. He would have not looked at Trayvon Martin's skin color. He would have examined the content of his character. He would examine, Dr. King would have been wise enough to examine the content of Michael Brown and a whole lot of others. Rayshard Brooks. He would have examined the content of his character, is what he would have done. And having done so, would not have found justification to call a march based on someone who actually attacked both Michael Brown and Trayvon, attacked their assailant. So I think that what we need to begin to do now is to discover that this march of the Black Lives Matter is not of God. It's not rooted in the traditional marches, that it comes from the bottomless pit of hell itself, and it needs to be said. I think the leaders that are now leading these various marches and those that are fueling it have no experience of which they are grieving. Now, many of them that are out there on the streets, as I've said so many times before, especially those of the Hamite, Canaanite, black or Negro persuasion, that they themselves are declaring Black Lives Matter, but their life did not matter to their own fathers who didn't take care of them. And when they get out of the safe streets of marching in safe places in America and safe places because of the thousands that are marching with them, and they have to go back to their tenement buildings or their city projects at night, their life don't mean a damn thing to that man standing outside the projects or in the ghettos. Their life don't mean a damn thing, black on black, and they know it. Chicago is experiencing now unbelievable. They had another 60, 70 shootings in Chicago this weekend after 100 shootings over Father's Day weekend of black people killing black people. This has got to be, you have the media does not cover this, but people of reason need to look and say, wait a minute. And they haven't called a march over to Chicago where 100 people were shot. And the following weekend, there'll be 50 or 60 people shot in Chicago, black on black. Black lives don't matter. It's a lie. If they're going to march, they should march, stop police brutality, if that's what you call it. But to put a title on it and a banner that black lives are important to who? You may be a sympathizer. You may think that black people are underprivileged. You may think that police treat them differently. That you may think they die disproportionately. You may think they're marginalized as far as economics is concerned. As far as housing, you may agree with all that, and all that may be true. But you have to recognize that to other black people don't count for a damn thing. And you have to recognize. And so why would you raise up a hypocritical lie such as Black Lives Matter? If you're going to be supportive, all right. But you shouldn't support something that does not address the issues. But I think that, the other thing that these Black Lives Matter group of us, I've heard, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but most of the leadership founders are all trannies, not lesbians, not gay men, trannies. 90% of the founding group are trannies. The march that killed Dr. King down in '68 down in Memphis, Tennessee. King went to Memphis because the garbage men, the garbage workers down there were complaining about they weren't being paid fairly. And they wove these clipboard signs over their shoulders saying, "I am a man." Yeah, that's what it says, "I'm a man." And Dr. King gave his life for that phrase. His last march and his last sermon was to defend those men who said, "I'm a man." Hell, these Black Lives Matter, all of them are damn trannies, are lesbians. They don't even want to be a man. They got men who cut off their genitals to be a woman, and they got women who've had surgical procedures to try to grow a pair of basketballs. The Dr. King would never march with anything like that. He died with men who said, "I'm a man." This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I am he. I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.